This is Things I Need to Learn in Life I Didn't Learn in School, covering everything we should know as adults that got glossed over in our classrooms. With your host, Wave News anchor, Dawne Gee.
We are starting the new year. I thank you for joining me for Things I Need to Learn in Life I Didn't Learn in School. And this is something that is extremely important. I'm Dawne Gee, and I'm so glad to have you here. Joining me today, Jonathon White, who is a behavioral health specialist. Did I say that right?
Yes, ma'am, you did.
You are with Norton?
I am with the Institute for Health Equity.
So, you know, we hear about mental health all the time now.
Right.
It used to never hear it,
Mm-hmm.
maybe unless it was whispered. Right. So we're doing better, but we have so much to catch up with because we never talked about it before.
Correct.
But I feel like we're drowning. We're in trouble right now. Mm-hmm. What's going on?
Well, I think there's a lot of misconceptions around mental health or mental wellness, if you will. A lot of times people think that something is wrong with them, but if you come from the perspective of what has happened to them, then it gives a framework of understanding and pathways of learning and healing. For example, when we think about adverse childhood experiences, or what they call ACEs, most people have experienced them but don't understand what they are and how they tend to manifest in life as we get older.
So some of the problems, then you're saying some of the problems we have later in life come from the beginning of our life?
They could have originated at the beginning of life. Mm-hmm. According to the CDC, about 64% of persons have experienced at least one ACE, adverse childhood experience. And that kind of sets the trajectory for the rest of life, depending on the resources that you have, the coping skills that you learn, and what's available to you at that time.
I also heard, you tell me if I'm right, that if you experience like a really traumatic thing, like a shooting or just something really bad, that it literally changes your brain chemistry.
It does change the brain. Trauma tends to change the brain chemistry and the way we think, and in the way we perceive life. It tends to erode our sense of safety and security. And so for a lot of people these days, the things that we traditionally looked at as safe or stable or sound, because of the influx in the world, so many things are unsure, and it's causing symptoms of maybe depression and or anxiety.
So it literally changes our brain chemistry.
Right, it does.
I heard that. That is crazy to me.
When we think about children and all the time, a lot of the diagnoses of ADHD, if you look beyond that, it could be actual trauma, because trauma can produce the symptoms of attention deficit disorder, such as the behavioral manifestations, the irritability, the loss of consistency because of the lifestyle as a result of trauma.
This blows my mind. So I was in my daughter's room. She teaches 6-year-olds, first grade, and I was reading a book that had a skeleton in it because it was Halloween, and we were laughing and playing, and the kids were talking about, oh, I've got a skeleton inside me, and this little girl raised her hand to say, I saw my daddy's skeleton, and I thought, uh-oh, where's this going? Right? Like, what? And she saw her father shot in the front yard, in the stomach, and she saw his ribs. And I thought, this has got to be a joke. I looked at my daughter like, what do I do? And my daughter was like, I could see she was looking at me like, you better figure this out. You better handle this right. And I just looked at her and I said, is your daddy okay? And she said, oh, yeah. And I said, well, we're going to talk about that later. And I, grabbed her little hands and sat her down, and we moved on. And I thought, what the, right? That's a 6-year-old.
It's a 6-year-old, and children are very resilient like most people, and we tend to bounce back. But if we never process it, those things linger with us. And then they become a trigger.
There's not that much resilience in the world.
Well, the fact that she was at school is resilient.
Oh, my goodness me. Okay, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
I feel like we don't know where to start. So self-care. I hear it all the time.
Right.
So if you said to me self-care, you know what that means to me?
What?
I'm gonna soak in a bathtub. That's self-care. That's all I know.
A lot of people will misinterpret self-indulgence as self-care.
Okay, stop there. Self-indulgence, which means what?
Self-indulgence is me giving into my natural desires, my passion, without any...
Like me eating cake?
Well, eating cake is not bad, but if I consistently eat cake and not take into account what it may do to me...
Right.
then
Is
it
that a
becomes
self-indulgence? Okay, okay, yeah.
Self-care requires a discipline. It's setting routines, and it's more about the goal being self-preservation. Because if we don't preserve ourselves, how are we there for other people? A lot of times, 95% of the things that we're anxious or worried about never happens. And I always encourage people, those things are out of your control, but what's in your control is the ability to take care of yourself. And then a lot of times we think it's just physical, but self-care is physical, psychological, it's emotional, it's relational, it's spiritual, and it even involves self-care at the workplace, because all of these dynamics impact a person's life. And so you have to be able to take care of yourself across the board. That's where we get that healthy work-life balance, if you will.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup.
No, you cannot. And so oftentimes, people who've always said yes have to learn the discipline of a boundary, because what I've discovered over the last few years is that no is an appropriate answer. It is a complete sentence, and it doesn't need any justification. And saying no to others means saying yes to you, especially if you're at your capacity.
Yeah, you're going to have to answer my phone calls and my emails then, Jonathan, because no is not a word that's in my vocabulary. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, we'll have to talk about that later. Okay, so self-care, how do I start that? And what am I doing?
Well, we can start by using what's called self-care assessments. There are tools that we can use, and I'm going to hand those to you in case you tend to upload it and people want to use it. Okay. And these tools are kind of broken down in domains.
Let me ask you this while we're doing this. Is there a website or a place where Norton has this listed as well?
I don't know if we have it listed on our website.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
I'm in the process of creating a series of resiliency tools.
Oh, how fabulous.
For both internal community and external community. And so it will, if it's not already there.
Okay, when you do that, you reach back out to me.
Yes.
And we'll have you on Wave Country and then back here.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. So where are we going here?
So when we think about self-care, it's a discipline. Say, for instance, if I'm looking at my physical self-care, I may look at how well am I eating regularly? Am I eating healthy? Do I go to the doctor each year for my annual checkup? Do I go to the doctor when I need to? Because a lot of times people run around with symptoms and, oh, I'm not going to check it out. And then it turns into something else, especially today with COVID, RSV, respiratory illness. If you're not feeling a certain way or feeling out of sorts, that's a good indicator that you might want to check in with a primary care physician or a doctor.
All right. All of those things are extremely important. I know you told me that people need to refuse to be a victim of circumstances.
Right. Refusing to be a victim of circumstances is a mindset, because I think that there is a positive that we can glean out of every negative experience. For example, this weekend my car totally crashed. I am a single parent of a 10-year-old. I'm helping to care for my mother who is aging and ill. And Sunday came and I wanted to get to church. And I thought, I have no ride to church, so let me
I'll come pick you up for church, Jonathan.
But I Ubered myself there. And then as I was reflecting, the Uber driver asked me to pray for him. And so I thought it was bigger than my car, because I got a prayer request from the Uber driver. And at the end of the service, I ran into you, who said, hey, come on to my podcast. So had I given in to the circumstance of, oh, my car is down, as opposed to looking at other options, I would have missed all of these opportunities to even receive a blessing or be a blessing.
But I know you have to know, though, how hard that is.
It is.
I mean, when it seems like, I don't know, like when it seems like when you're in that space where something bad has happened and you don't have a place to go or help, it's like somebody has crushed you, and you just don't know what to do.
Right.
I talk to at least 20 people a day. That's not an exaggeration. And they feel like there's no help for them. They don't have gas and light, or they don't have food. They're getting ready to be evicted. All of these things, and they don't know where to go. Now, let me say this too.
Right.
There are a lot of people who I tell them what to do, and they go, well, I can't do that. Like, yes, you can. Some people just,
Right.
like, yes, you can. Like, get up, come on.
I think empowerment comes through education and advocacy. That proverb, if you teach a person to fish, they'll eat a lifetime. And there are people that may not want to learn or feel that they've been through so much, what else can they learn? But I think it takes time, because me being a therapist, I've gone to therapy before, I practice tools, and so everything that I share with everybody else, usually I'm convicted and I know that it works because it worked for me. Now, are you me? No, you're not me, but if I can set a framework for you to be able to address your self-care, what is important to you, and how can we facilitate that to get you to a better quality of life? I think that puts you in the driver's seat. Even when we go to the doctor's office, people don't think that they have the right to talk to their physician if a medication is not working or if the diagnosis is wrong.
Preach, brother.
So we have to empower people to ask the question, because really we're perishing because of a lack of knowledge.
But people see the doctor on the top of a mountain and themselves in a valley. You are paying that doctor for a service,
Right.
and if you're not getting the service, there's a problem.
That is correct. So you have to take the mindset of a VIP. When I go into the doctor's office,
I'm the
a
most important
very
person.
person.
It's
right?
me.
Or a patient. It's
Right.
me. And go from that mindset, because doctors have their way of doing things, but many providers would want to partner with you and get you on part of a team. Like what I do at Norton, I tend to partner with the physicians or the specialists, making sure that the patient's voice is heard and making sure that we're facilitating goals and objectives that the patient wants. It's not about me as a professional imposing my value on you. What about your quality of life? What is it that you would like to change? And when we're talking about self-care, it's about setting small goals. I often use the SMART goal setting. Make sure that it's specific. Make sure that it's measurable, attainable, relevant, and time. And if we work on setting small goals, that builds up our resiliency to create the bigger goals. A lot of times people make the New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose 100 pounds.
It's too big.
Too big.
You just went too big.
Way too big.
And then when you can't, it's like you say, I'm going to eat that whole elephant in one bite. You can't do that.
Right.
You got to take nibbles.
Take nibbles.
Yeah, you got to take nibbles. Even, if you didn't agree with your doctor, you don't want to go in there mean and anything like that, but just say, excuse me, this isn't working for me. So I think I've learned something, and I'm trying to think of what the three things are. I had my ex, who I'd been with, I don't know, for 15 years, took his life. And he hung himself.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it rocked me. It has rocked me.
I can only imagine.
I'm still rocked. And it's bizarre because I think of him every day, like, why did he do that? And I had just talked to him. Why didn't he tell me, right? Like, why didn't he tell me what was going on? There could be nothing that was so bad that he had to do that.
Right.
Right?
I think that from an objective perspective, we could see that, but we don't know what's going on with him internally. And what we do know is that suicidality is on the rise in Kentucky, and
It is tripled.
Yes.
I don't understand.
Well, I've worked with patients, and I have the perspective from a mom that's lost a son, and this son was in college, doing well, thinking that everything's fine, but he took his life. I have a sister that has lost a brother, left a note and everything, and we think that people are doing fine, but we are not asking the questions.
Some people think if you say, are you thinking of committing suicide, then you're giving the idea of committing suicide, but that's not true.
No, it's a way to start the conversation, because the suicidality can come up in different phrases. Say, for instance, in the African American community, I'm tired.
We
I'm just
do,
ready
yeah.
to give
We
up.
don't talk about African American community, and I'm just doing this as a whole, so not everybody, but I believe as an African American, so I'm speaking, but as an African American, I don't think that we talk about mental health. Like, we don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about LGBTQ.
Right.
You know, that used to be a thing, but we're not going to talk about that. Like, that's crazy. I mean, there are so many things that we don't talk about. Mental health is one of them. That's got to stop.
Right, it's got to stop. And one way that we can do that is work with our faith-based communities and empower them. At Norton, I work a lot with our faith and health ministries, and sometimes we have the opportunity to do trauma-informed training or creating a bi-directional flow that if I'm at this facility, how do I get help to the bigger resources? I think that if we're going to work towards becoming a trauma-informed and resilient community, it takes everybody getting on board with this educate and advocate. I was recently at the Mayor's Night of Remembrance, and someone brought up the idea or the dilemma with suicide, because we look at violence by a linear lens, but we need to look at abuse, neglect, domestic violence. All of these things can lead to a person wanting to take their life. And so it's probably more on the inside, but if we stop and have the conversation, especially with our men, because men have always been providers or perceived as
Gotta be strong.
right? And especially
Don't
the
cry,
black male, you've
right?
been trained not to cry, or it means something. And so kind of dispelling those myths and creating safe spaces for people to be able to talk and dialogue about what's happening to them. When I had someone who was thinking about suicide because he felt his skin was too dark, I felt like that's a greater problem in society.
Right.
This issue with colorism and why we put stuff on race and how we're marginalizing certain people.
It's just crazy.
It's crazy when God created everybody with value.
Everybody. And did it with, I believe, God and I haven't talked about it. I've talked to him about it, but, but God created all of the differences because he wanted us to see that beauty.
Right, and that he uses us with our differences.
With our differences.
You mentioned LGBTQ+. I'm
Right.
a part of that population, but I'm still part of Christian education and have been doing that for 25 years.
But he wanted us to see that beauty
Right.
because we all bring something
to the table.
Something beautiful, something interesting, something that can change the world, something that can make the world better, something that can teach each and every one of us something that we don't have that we need. I believe that.
If we looked at it like a puzzle, and then yours might be a small piece.
Right, it fits.
And it has just as much value as the bigger pieces
because you can't have the whole picture.
You can't have the whole picture.
Without that piece of the puzzle.
And so everybody has value.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of times that we're growing from trauma and we don't really recognize it because there are post-traumatic growth inventories that we can look at, and we look at the 5 domains of growth, and that's spirituality, a greater appreciation for life. Am I having closer relationships with those that are left? Am I taking advantage of new opportunities? What we want to do is foster hope, because think about it, that person that died by suicide got into a state of hopelessness where there was no way out. It was totally dark.
That's where I don't understand. I just don't understand. And then I feel like, what did I not do? I didn't want to talk to him. He was my ex. No, I didn't.
But what if you did everything right? And then there's a way.
I'm trying to hold myself together right now because I just don't understand. Like, what, anyway, like, what do you do? Is there something you can do? Like that mother you said, her son was doing well in college, and he was, so now, honestly, I'm so messed up by this that when my phone rings, I'm like, I answer it like, what's the matter? And my mom is like, what do you mean, what's the matter? My kids go, what's the matter? And they're like, stop. We're trying to see if you want to go get pizza. But in my mind, all I can think is, because when they called me, it was a wonderful Sunday, and I was getting ready to have dinner, and his children called me and said, Ma, he took his life. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what'd you just say? And then I had to help them plan.
Right.
It's just, what do you do? Because you don't know.
You don't know. And that's why education and advocacy is so important. Right now, I'm working with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Levon Carter, he's a great guy, but what he does is he does the suicide training, train the trainer. Talk Saves Lives. We have him scheduled.
Talk Saves Lives. Okay.
And so I have him scheduled to come by the Institute for Health Equity, and we will do some training, and then we will be coming out to train the community both inside Norton and outside of Norton, because if we start the conversation, we can save lives.
So if someone is okay, two questions. If someone is feeling despondent and think they may take their lives, the number is 988 now.
That's the crisis hotline.
That crisis hotline is totally different. They're not going to put you on hold or make you wait. You're going to go directly to somebody who can help you and just get you what you need. It's a total different line. It's 988. If someone is worried and thinks someone might have that in mind and they just need help, what can they do?
I would say talk to that person and walk with that person.
What if they're afraid? What if they don't know what to do?
Okay, well, that's why we do education and we learn what to do. We learn what are the warning signs. We learn what are the catchphrases. And then we say, if this happens, then we need to go to this. A lot of times people are trying to handle it individually, and even in our churches, trying to pray it through. But a person that's thinking about suicide, that is very, very significant. And we've got to get them in touch with the healthcare professionals that can treat that particular situation and not take upon too much ourselves.
And don't look away and say, no, probably not.
Right.
Ask it. You have to do it.
Right. Because
you got to do it.
Like you said, culturally in our community, we thought, oh, this doesn't have to happen to black people.
Right.
But
it happens to everybody.
Right.
And it's on the rise. It has tripled. And people are in trouble in all kinds of ways. I feel like there are probably things that we didn't touch on and we don't have too much time left. But what else do you want to say that people need to know when it... Oh, I know what I wanted to say. Somebody had said to me, like, when I feel like I am in trouble mentally or whatever, that I need to kind of like stop and be still.
Stop and be still.
Like just, take that breath, stop and be still. And then next, if you can, just let it go, whatever that thing was. I think, I'm not sure I've got this right. Just let it go. And then for me, I do believe in God. And then next, she didn't say let it, give it to God, but I changed that. And now I can't remember what she said. And then third, give it to God. So be still, let go, let God.
And when I be still, I can practice diaphragmatic breathing.
And breathing works.
Right, because what diaphragmatic breathing does, it slows down that blood flow that's going to the brain too rapidly because we're stressed, and then we're able to make a sound decision.
Yeah, because you can't make a sound decision if you're not thinking right.
Right. We can practice what's called grounding techniques, and grounding techniques is techniques that takes us from the negative emotion to a more positive one. There's mental grounding, there's physical grounding, and there's self-soothing groundings. And again, I'm going to give you just handouts that you can post, that these are kind of self-explanatory, that people can kind of learn these tools for themselves.
Okay. Anything else you want to share?
Well, I'm just foreseeing that we're going to have a more blessed and prosperous new year. I think there's an opportunity to learn from all of the mishaps. How do we come together as a community to grow? And I thank you for this avenue to advocate for mental health, especially with certain marginalized populations like the LGBT or the Black community, or populations that have always been marginalized or oppressed, because healthcare systemically has been issues for some people. So thank you.
We've got to take care. We've got to take care of our mental health. And again, it's so funny. If you are rushed or worried or mad or sad, don't make a decision then.
Correct.
That ain't the time to make it. No, because you ain't thinking right.
Right, and then having accountability partners.
Yeah.
Right, that's that one person that I might trust, or it may be a group of people. I needed some support, and so I joined the mob. And what the mob is,
Men of Bates. That's our church. Men of Bates.
We meet every Sunday at 12:30, and we were meeting pre-pandemic. And you don't have to be a member, but we have male discussions. And yes, we use the Bible, but our conversations goes to whatever topic because we want every brother to feel safe, every brother to know that, you know what, there is a refuge. God is the ultimate refuge, but sometimes he uses you and I to be able to facilitate and touch other people.
Yeah, well, maybe, there's a group that you can find or somebody that you can talk to because it's important. For me, I laugh. I always say don't take on somebody's baggage. That's what I call it, because I learned that I'll say something to somebody and maybe they'll snap back nasty at me. And then I go to my desk and I say, I don't know who they think they are, snapping at me. And then I take, then I take it on, and then I'm all mad, and then somebody says something to me and I snap it then. And then, and then I find out that person snapping at me didn't have nothing to do with me. That person's mom just got put in the hospital and their dad, and then I find out, and then I feel real stupid because, here I didn't spend half my day going like, she ain't gonna talk to me that way again.
If we were trauma informed, we would have been able to ask the right questions.
Right.
That would have started the dialogue.
Like, hey, can I help you? What's the matter? But I didn't took it on me.
Right.
Don't pick up somebody else's baggage. Don't do it.
I always think if that bank, and I don't know what their staff was like, if they were trauma informed, would that shooting incident happen?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That.
And then one of the things
you just don't know, and you have to pray for everyone, and you have to pray for that young man's mom and dad.
Right. And we don't really need the theology from the church. We need the relationship and the connection. Right.
Yeah.
Because that family is hurting as well.
I pray for everyone. I pray for them. I pray for them. Thank you. Norton does have health care, and they have mental health care. Reach out to your family physician.
Primary care physician to get the referral.
To get referrals, they can help you. Again, Jonathon White, I thank you, from Norton Healthcare. Anything else? It's so important. When I was in school, high school, middle school, mental health, what? We didn't talk about it. We did not. It was not talked about. Right. I hope they talk about it now. If they don't, talk to your babies, talk to your kids, talk to your high school. Like, start talking about it when they're little.
Because one of the things about the ACEs study that's so remarkable to me, all it takes is the loving and care from one nurturing adult.
That's it.
To change the whole trajectory. And out of all the things that I've been through, I am so grateful for the nurturing people that kind of say, hey, Jonathon, did you think about that? Can you do it this way? Very gentle-like, right? And I think that we've got to be able to put love back in the air.
That's it. That's it. Love always wins.
Love wins.
Always, 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 always. I believe that. That's it, you all. I want your mental health. I want you to have a 2024 all the way through to 3099 where we all feel good. We are good, and we are settled in ourselves, and that's what I want. Certainly things I need to learn in life I didn't learn in school. I hope you'll join us again. Jonathon White, thank you. I appreciate you, my family there, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me, Dawne Gee.